Hi, welcome back to Bebop Review. My name is Andy Shaw. This is Subscribers News 3. I just want to answer some questions that people have given me. I'm sorry about this. I moved up to my flat because it's getting a bit cold down at my unit, and it's also a bit of a mess because I've been doing some work down there. So I'm just filming this up at my flat. So it's quite a dull day in Sheffield today. So I apologise if this is not exposed correct, this picture, because I ain't got no lights or anything up here. That's why I'm filming near the window, so you can probably see me better. So I just want to answer some questions that people have asked me. I had a question from a South Korean student who asked me about practice, you know, what he should be practicing. I don't think I'm the right person to be asking, really, because I'm just an amateur musician. To me, bebop and jazz and saxophone playing is just a bit of fun. I don't see it as a profession for myself. I don't ever want to see it as a profession because, to me, music's always been about having fun. And if you're going to do things professionally, it doesn't become fun anymore. It becomes a living, and I don't want music to be like that in my life. As far as practice concerns, Adam Neely, who's a bass player on YouTube, he's got quite a lot of subscribers. He's one of YouTube's, music gurus. He put a video on called 5-Hour Practice Routine. And basically, everything he does in that video, you need to practice. I know it's tough if you look at that video. But I would also say that you've got to do everything he does in that video. You've got to play scales and trads and all that kind of stuff. Right, and inversions of chords, if you want to be good, right? If you play that, you will really have an advantage in bebop, looking at bebop, because a lot of the stuff in there is part of the riffs, if you know what I mean, in bebop. So, like M1, which is one of the most important riff in bebop, which is an arpeggio that rises. If you've practiced trads in every key, right, as Adam Neely shows you on that video, you will find that easy. It won't be any problem to you. What I would say about Adam Neely's video is this. Adam Neely plays for 5 hours non-stop, and in that video he talks just a little bit to camera. Now I watched that video. I haven't watched 5 hours of it, but I'm quite interested to actually observe Adam Neely while he was practicing, because it's not very good to practice 5 hours non-stop like that. You hear people say, oh, Charlie Parker played like 12 hours, every day, 12 hours. And yeah, he might have done, but he didn't play like Adam Neely plays. Human beings, right, can only concentrate for about 20 minutes at maximum. And then they start losing it in the mind, if you know what I mean. So if you play an instrument, I just want to say one thing before I even get into this about practicing. When you practice, before you even practice, you must know your instrument. You've got to know your instrument and how to practice on your instrument. I'll just give you an example. I got another message from somebody called Mikhail Stott, and she asked me to review a site called Jazz Everyone, which I probably will do in the future. Now, in Jazz Everyone, there's a video where a girl is learning how to play. The trumpet player is sat there and he's talking to the girl, right? And getting her to play these things called pentatonic pairs, right? But before we even start, she's actually holding the saxophone wrong. If you look at her, she's got the saxophone between her legs and resting it on the chair. That's really bad technique. Not only that is, but when she actually goes to play the saxophone, she moves her head forward. And when you're playing a saxophone, you've got to have all the weight on the sling, and the saxophone comes to you. You don't go to the saxophone comes to you and fits in your mouth. So her technique's really wrong. So before she even practices or anything, she's got to get a technique right, and absolutely nobody corrects her. And I watched video after video, and every one she were doing it wrong. She were actually practicing wrong and nobody corrected her. So that's really bad. So before you even start practicing, make sure that you get good technique on your instrument, the posture and everything, before you start practicing. In fact, Adam Neely, there's some videos that Adam Neely puts on. They're very good. You want to look at them. And what they are, people do some music and then they put them on and Adam Neely reviews them. And it's really interesting to see what Adam Neely says about these people. But there's so many where Neely immediately attacks them. I mean, in a very nice way, but attacks them on the technique. He's saying you've got your hand bent and you'll have problems with your hand because you're playing the bass with a bent hand. You've got to keep your hand straighter. And I was thinking, every single, it just seemed to be every other video, they were using bad technique.
If there is one thing that I want you to take from my How to Not Suck at Music videos, it's this. Keep a straight wrist. For the love of God, please keep a straight left-hand wrist, because then you'll actually have a career after 10 years and you won't injure yourself. If you play with a
technique, so one guy were playing and dropping his hand, and which, it looked bad to me, and I'm not even a bass player. So it's quite interesting to look at those Adam Neely videos. It's in a playlist where he's got like 3 or 4 videos where he's actually commentating on people's playing. So you'll see what I mean about practicing. It's really important that you get good posture, good technique before you even start practicing. Otherwise, you're going to get really big problems. Now, my saxophone technique is bad. I'll just show you. I'll just show you here on this. When you play saxophone, you've got to have your hands at an angle like that. But to me, it's always been very hard. I think I've got some kind of arthritis in my hands, and I play more straighter. See this note here? The correct way to do it is to lift up and play that. That's F sharp. But I can't play it like that. I have to play it like that with the flat of the hand. Now, a saxophone teacher would say that's really bad. But somehow I've managed to get a very good, quick technique doing that, and it feels very comfortable because I've been doing it for years and years and years. Because I have this problem in my hand, bending my fingers. So if I were teaching saxophone, I would be teaching somebody wrong, and that wouldn't be right. You know what I mean? I would have to say, whatever you do, don't play saxophone like me, because I've adjusted my playing because I have problems with my fingers. So it's really important to look at that, and when you're practicing, look at how you're playing your instrument and what the experts say you should play, and make sure you do that before you even start on the scale practice and things. Right, as far as scales are concerned, go back to Adam Neely. Adam Neely plays scales, major scales, which are really important. I would say that's the most important to the lot, to play major scales, like Adam tells you. But don't play 5 hours non-stop. Every 20 minutes, take a break, and within 1 hour of practice, you should have 20 minutes where you're not playing at all, where you're actually resting. Because what it does is, it gets your brain back to, I don't know why it is, but it gets your brain back. I know this when I was doing engineering, where I spend all day doing maths problems and that, and you get to a problem where you simply can't work it out. Then you go and have a cup of tea, for 10, 15 minutes, you come back and you can work problem out. Somehow your brain, once it's rested, it gets back to full strength again. And it's the same with practicing. Practice for 20 minutes, right? Something like that, or from anywhere up to 20 minutes, and then take 5-10 minutes break. Have a listen to some music, put a record on, listen to music, or do something else, you know what I mean? Doodle, read a comic, I don't know. But give yourself a rest, and then have another practice for 20 minutes. But within every hour, try to get a good 20 minutes rest in the hours of practice. I'm telling you, you'll be able to practice longer and concentrate more. So that's another thing about practice. And Adam Neely also does another one where he's playing this silly riff. He sells these T-shirts with his riff, and he's playing this riff for 5 hours, and that is harmful. I think that's harmful myself, doing something like that, playing one riff 5 hours. Because what's happened is you're playing a riff for 5 hours. That's all you're going to get in your head. It's like going to the supermarket at Christmas. And we've just had Christmas, haven't we? We've just got over Christmas. Every time I go into the supermarket, they're playing all these silly Christmassy songs, and I come out at the supermarket and I can't get them out of my head. You know what I mean? So if you're playing a silly riff, like that for 5 hours, it's just going to be going around in your head all the time. So I would say do not do that ever. Another thing about practice is, we're going to talk about, not so much practice in future, but we're going to talk about the riffs in bebop. Now, if you practice all your scales, right, you should be okay with quite a few of them. I mean, scales in patterns like 4-note patterns all over the place, are tetrachords, which I've been talking about in how to play bebop. You see them all the time, tetrachords, so you really want to be getting into things like that, But I will be looking and saying this is something to practice in this. I think the most important thing in bebop to practice line is M5B, which I've talked about, which is the chromatic line, because M5B itself is made up of other little patterns, like a 3-note line, which Parker plays quite a lot, where he goes da 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 like that, running down. So we talk about this in how to play bebop when I get round to that. Also, let me see, what do you see? Jazz, everyone, rhythm. Yeah, somebody's asked me about rhythm. Yeah, we'll be looking at Charlie Parker. I just want to say something about rhythm, Charlie Parker's rhythmic playing. There's a guy called Jake Dexter, who's a saxophone player. I'll put his site underneath this video in the link to it. And he's actually concentrating on rhythm. Now, the interesting thing is he puts rhythm, he talks, I mean, some of them are they're very short videos where he's going about bebop rhythm, but he is looking at bebop rhythm very closely. But I will also be putting a few things on rhythm, just talking roughly about rhythm. Somebody called Ruben Pompey wanted me to put on the history of jazz, which I might do. As interesting. Thing is, it's time, you see, because in future I also want to. This is something coming up. I want to put a course on arranging. I haven't put anything on for a month or two because I haven't been very well. I'm just recovering after it now, so I'm actually going to try and speed up and get a few videos out there. But we're probably talking about. I'm going to put a course on arranging, jazz arranging, because I think it's really. I won't say it's really important, but it's really handy, I'm telling you. And it's handy not just for jazz, because I actually played with a soul band, and none of the people in that soul band could arrange, and I was the only one arranging it. If it weren't for me writing up parts out, it wouldn't have been, it wouldn't have been able to get going, that band. So jazz arranging is quite interesting in other ways. But before we do jazz arranging we need to look at traditional harmonies. So I'm probably going to be putting a course on traditional harmony. What's getting me with that is it's scaring me because there's so much work. But I know this is a jazz. This site is about jazz and bebop, but traditional harmony is so difficult that it really gets your brain working. So that'd be a good thing to put on. And also with traditional harmony, if I put that on, I will be opening out. If you notice, when I put playlists on, what I do is I just put like Berkeley Harmony, I'll put BH, because I don't want everybody out there coming. I only want those people who are interested in bebop who think. But with traditional harmony, it's something different. That when I did traditional harmony with my Open University course, I was looking all over YouTube, right, and whatever, for somebody, who's actually doing it, or I would have, I don't think anybody at the time, when I did my course, it was quite early in YouTube's history. But even today, there's nobody on YouTube who is doing a proper course on traditional harmony. Somebody called The Art of Counterpoint, who put a few videos on, but nothing, absolutely nothing from what you've got to learn. And also there's a professor, college professor, somebody's filmed him in a classroom, but you can't follow it, it's really difficult. So I'm going to put some videos on traditional harmony, because once you get into the rules of traditional harmony, they really do help you in bebop, because you can see it how somebody like Charlie Parker moves around, and his lines always fit perfectly with the theory of European harmony and melody, etc. So that's that. So that's what's coming. Obviously arranging. I'll carry on with the other stuff. Again, it's just time. It's where I've got time to put all this stuff on. There's just so much I want to talk about, really, because I'm interested in it myself. You know what I mean? But let me think. Is there anything else I should say? Not for now. So future. We practice. What I'm saying, we practice. I think that's the main thing I've been talking about. Practice is. Don't practice more than 20 minutes at a time, right? Unless you're some kind of super brain person, Because what happens is your practice diminishes. 20 minutes, have a break, another 20 minutes, have a break, right? And every hour, have a good 20 minutes, at least 20 minutes break in an hour, okay? So I'll see you in the next video, okay?